like to call to order this January 24th, 2023 special meeting of the Everett Public School Board of Directors to order. Will the secretary please call the roll?
President Levesque.
Present.
Vice President Mitchell.
Present.
Director Nichols.
Present.
Director Herman.
Present.
Director Mason.
Present.
Thank you very much. Our first item of business is the adoption of the agenda. Dr. Saltzman, would you please introduce this agenda for this special meeting?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, Board of Directors, and the public this evening. This afternoon's agenda contains a segment for the first study session for Strategic Initiative Updates, B1A, C1B, and 2CB. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saltzman. Again, if all directors are in agreement, the agenda will be approved by general consent. Thank you very much. We will begin. The presenters for this work study are Dr. Meisner. He is at the podium. Take it away.
Thank you, President Lassane. We are very excited tonight to provide you with updates on 3 of our initiatives. We have a focus on high quality instruction as the major theme for tonight's presentation. So 3 initiative updates, each is of design for about 30 minutes. We're going to make sure that each presentation has some interactivity, as well as include time for questions, answers, and discussion. So these are the 3 initiatives that we reviewed in our prior board meeting. The common theme, as I mentioned, was instruction. The first will be provided by Callie Spear, which is about our instructional vision, and then aligning our various tools, such as frameworks, to make sure there is alignment to those tools with the vision. Larry Fleckenstein will provide an update about how we're using some of the more technical parts of our instructional day, so that's time, schedule, and course offerings, to ensure alignment towards our vision. And finally, Anthony Anderson will be providing an update on how we are offering more flexible learning spaces and opportunities, as well as choice, again, in alignment to our instructional vision. So each segment will have some basic parts that you'll see as part of our predictable routine. So a big overview at the top, milestones and timeline, and we will make sure that we are including and naming how we are engaging others as a part of that description. Celebrations, performance measures, and one note on performance measures, the primary theme with those will be describing the current status of the implementation for each of the initiatives. The priority student outcomes, which are the core of our strategic plan, the board will be receiving an update at the upcoming February 7th board meeting from Dr. Matthews that will go into some detail, looking at both proficiency and growth to align standards for each of our 6 priority student outcomes. So tonight, we'll be hearing more about how each of the discrete initiatives are doing with their implementation. We'll also include challenges, next steps, and again, of course, time for questions and discussion. Okay, with that, I would like to welcome Callie Spear, and she will begin.
Thank you, Dr. Hi, thank you for having me here tonight. I'm excited to kick this off. I am Callie Spear. I'm the Director of Secondary Instruction. I'm here to talk with you about our strategic initiative around establishing clear and vertically aligned instructional models or frameworks that embed culturally responsive instructional practices. In short, this is really about Tier 1 instruction, how we meet the needs of our kids. We're sitting in front of us in our classrooms every day. So, but before we kick off the update, I do want to have you do a quick little activity on this note card. On the note card, yes. Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm going to ask you to reflect back to the instructional review process. And I want you to think about a classroom that you were in where you saw kids absolutely most engaged. So kids were super engaged, you saw some really high quality teaching. I want you to write down that memory. Please don't mention a teacher or location, but just the memory of the experience that you had. So kids were super engaged, teaching was awesome. I'll give you a minute or so to do that. I'm seeing a few of you still writing, so I don't want to start yet. So please take your time and keep writing. It's just kind of awkward to sit in silence.
At least you'll have any annoying music going, like the Jeopardy music is what I think it is.
That would raise some anxiety, I think.
Put it in a form of a question?
No, thanks. All right, so you'll notice that our strategic objective is to increase staff capacity to meet the needs of each learner, which is what this instructional vision process was about. And under that umbrella of effective instructional practice, we are on track. We're in the green for completing our work this year. So I'll start with the milestones and timelines as was framed earlier. We had a really exciting launch to the school year. In August, we were able to present the strategic initiative, our work, the instructional vision to the entire administrator and supervisor team. We had a really good chunk of time. We dug into the instructional vision. We talked about next steps, what this would look like in their building, with them kind of co-leading the work along with us. So that was really exciting. During August lid days, the buildings did have an opportunity to share this with staff. Some of them chose full staff, where they went really and dug into the vision. Others went with their ILT to talk about how are we weaving this into initiatives we're currently doing. So they had some choice there about what this looks like for their buildings. And then throughout this year, we continued to build out subject-specific look forwards. I'm going to highlight in this celebration some work we did with our special services team around this, but this is really specific for content. So when we walk into a math class, we now have really clear ideas of what we want to see under each of these visioning statements. ELA, even our career and technical education as well. So we did this for the gamut of all of our subject areas. Our goal this year is really integration. So this isn't a standalone initiative anymore. This lives in the work that we're doing. So whenever we have teachers in front of us, we start with the vision. When we are engaging teachers and administrators in our student growth goal pilot, they started with the vision. Our instructional coaches meetings with principals who attend, the vision lives there. When we're talking about multi-tiered systems of support, Tier 1 instruction is the base of that, so the instructional vision lives there. You will hear about middle school redesign tonight. Every working group is framed with the instructional vision. We also have this just in any of our other professional development opportunities. So within our math professional development, this is kind of the core of that. Within science, our curriculum adoption implementations, this all is the forefront of the work. So that's pretty exciting. To kind of dovetail, we gave this book last year. Dr. Herman, I can give you this book if you'd like. I can go grab it from upstairs. It's called Culturally Responsive Education in the Classroom. It's by Adiyemi Stembridge. Stembridge informed the student growth goal pilot that we're engaging in right now. His work did. And so we actually did a book study, and it's continuing, it's on Canvas, it's asynchronous, so teachers are able to engage in that book study and learn more about some practices that are going to support the vision. And then, I already mentioned this, but I think just as a standalone, we have some curriculum implementations happening this year. Thank you so much for your support for our K-12 arts curriculum adoption. The visioning work has been super important to that work this year, kind of setting the stage for our K-12 arts programs. And then we also have some work with the middle school science and some high school science courses as well. So that's integrated there as well. As we continue to adopt new curriculum or through that curriculum process, we also are engaging in the vision. In addition to some of the initiatives, I guess, that we're doing as the academic team, we also are working as a strategic initiative team to embed the practices within each other's work. So we meet regularly. So when you hear about B1B, which is multi-tiered systems of support, or MTSS, and that designing that program, you'll hear about the instructional vision. Also with C1A, removing barriers to learning, our early learning programs and growing those. You'll hear tonight on the two other presentations, kind of the integration of how this work is all flowed together with our pathways and our instructional times at master scheduling, and then also the grading and assessment work. So it's all interconnected, which is exciting. So I am going to ask you to just really quickly look at your card, get that memory back in your head, and I am going to hand out the instructional vision, and I'm going to ask you to make some connections. So within your memory from your instructional review process, where do you see connections to our instructional vision? And bonus, if you can think of an opportunity of where you saw some room for growth, we'd love that feedback as well. But I'm gonna ask you to think about that, and then in about a minute or two, I'm gonna ask you to get up and actually talk with our executive cabinet about your experience. So you're gonna find somebody over on this side of the room to chat with about your experience, and then we'll switch, and you'll get a second partner if there's a little bit of time.
Oh, cool.
So when you're ready, go on and get up and find someone to talk to.
We can talk to anybody?
Anybody you want. I have no parameters.
No parameters, okay.
So when I think about students doing I would go in everything, you know, they were working at
You don't have to think of it. No, because there's many other people who respond to things. So I guess I'm really good about two different experiences
they were in charge.
scenario is when a student didn't know the answer or the other student didn't.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Whereas in middle school, it's all
And some classrooms, they weren't demonstrating the tools that they had. They were
feedback and instructions.
Yeah.
And I think some of that actually comes back to one of middle school. This is their second or third full year of implementation with that curriculum, so they've done it a little bit more. And I think they're a little bit better at setting the stage for how do you avoid, how do you truly partner with them? And then of course there's some of the mental components too. As a passive learner, how am I engaging? How am I trying to grab some of those things? And that's one of the things that we've spent some time is thinking about what does it mean to have those passive learners. And I think we saw pretty frequently in a lot of our where you have like a teacher engaging with this small group or a couple of kids who are coming up doing a panel, and then as soon as the answer, all these kids in the back row are like, oh, write down the answer. And it's one of the pieces that I brought back. My feedback to the team was, hey, with all this passive learning, teachers are going to scan these student materials and go, oh, they don't know how to do it, and they have to learn this first. Because they're just reporting on the answers. So we need to think about different ways of doing that. And so trying to find different angles rather than just kind of doing the whole group of like, well, that works, but if that's the only thing you're doing.
If you want to switch, feel free.
A bunch of
Find a new
kids.
partner.
And so trying to think about different opportunities of like, could you do these
We'll just have about
other
2
groups
more
of
minutes.
more directions of support how kids can jump in and teach. We found that at the elementary level, this classes that are better with accountable test practices, how do I have those discussions? The teachers who pre-teach, how do I talk to each other? That's where we see things really shaking better.
Yeah, it was interesting because in elementary, all kids were
Yeah.
when they were trying to solve.
All right.
One kid, one really took the lead.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting because just the way that they, it wasn't the same lesson in the classrooms, but, kids were interested, really nice,
And it's fun.
It's fun, versus the other, and again,
You went to one or two of these things, so. But it does bring us to a really, like, we want kids to be engaging in games and really enjoying and having fun. It's not just about like getting task completion. Sometimes teachers, they get stuck in like, yeah, but they have to do the work. And I'm like, sure. We can think about different engagement strategies that help kids. And that's a huge piece of it.
If you wouldn't mind, turn on your
When we know kids are really authentically engaged, they just complain because they feel like they're actually working with each other and exploring and having fun.
Yeah.
That's where you feel the best.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's right, or anything.
Right, they're checked out.
And that part.
Yes.
And just having spoken to my own kids and that
But
teacher,
there were others.
yeah, they'd rather go talk to their
Other
parents
classes.
than go talk to the teacher. So,
Yeah.
yes.
They're all alive.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for engaging that quick activity. Would anyone mind just quickly sharing out a snippet of their conversation? We don't have a ton of time. I know I'm constrained because there are 2 people after me. I'm sure we could talk about this all night, but would anybody be willing to share just something quickly that they talked about that would be helpful for everyone to hear? Jen?
Okay, yeah, just the connection between the IRs, I was just saying, are just such a great way to get a sense of what's going on in the classroom. And the connection was so clear to me. The example that just jumped into my mind was a particular classroom that was using turn and talk at the time. And so it was exactly you could see that when you say community of learners, it was just a picture of community of learners and the students sharing and their peers probing and elevating that voice. It was wonderful to see. So that was my example.
Awesome. And just to speak quickly to that, like those are the kind of underlying foundational pieces that as we work through some of our curriculum and some of the standards and learning about that we have to work with teachers on, right? And like, so how do you set up a classroom so kids are able to engage in that? You can't just say turn and talk. Like, but there are really foundational pieces. And so that's exciting that you pointed that out because that's really the work that we do to set up how do you get here? So you can't just say this is our vision.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, for the sake of time, I just want to quickly share some of the celebrations of recent work. This is an example, and it's small, so I apologize, but this is just the top part of the inclusive practice look-fors. So we worked with the entire special services team to help develop this out. So when we go into an inclusive practices classroom, this is what we're going to look for. And when we talk about inclusive practice, it's what is the best environment for the student? And how are we meeting each student's needs? And so this is really exciting work that the special services team is engaging in, and we're continuing with the working group this year. Some of the work we also do when we implement a curriculum is we do walkthroughs to see how's it going, where can we better support? And so this is an example of our science draft walkthrough form using the instructional vision as we are implementing in middle school. This is our admin meeting. So we used Mentimeter, which is a really cool engagement tool. And we collected a bunch of information from administrators, and it just kind of helps inform our practice. And so we were moving forward with some of the suggestions they had, some of the understandings that they shared with us, and so that's how we're helping to support our administrators. And then I just wanted to show you, and you'll hear more about this next, but the middle school redesign process, our working groups are really using this as a foundational piece. And so I'm meeting with the English language arts teachers, actually tomorrow, for our second meeting. And then we've completed the history work already. And we've really centered on that instructional vision as how are we actually moving forward with this and really focusing on best practices in instruction to meet the needs of our kids.
Before we go further, can you explain what STEM Bridge is?
Yes, absolutely. So that's the Adiami STEM book, The Culture Responsive Education in the Classroom. And so it was a book study that we did last year, and teachers are still able to engage in it this year. And it helps to set the tenets of the underlying kind of components of the instructional vision, because there are shifts in thinking and shifts in how we actually engage with kids. And STEMbridge has a nice frame for how to do that. He has 5 planning questions. He has a few residencies at some of our North End schools, working with Madison Elementary and Hawthorne Elementary. And he informed the student growth goals. So that's how teachers like create their own goals, and his work, that book, informed that. So we're trying to tie all of it together. Yeah. If you need a copy, I can get you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
absolutely. So our challenges and opportunities, we really focus on opportunities. And our opportunities are to continue using this in the redesign work. We have physical education meeting, we have health meeting, we have career technical education meeting, and we're continuing to meet with the English language arts group. So that continues this spring. As we review our curriculum adoption procedures, we want to really look at the instructional vision and see, are there any areas that we could make changes to, dependent on what kids really need in the classroom. And so looking at the instructional vision as part of that process. And then for additional feedback, we've received feedback from teachers, we've received feedback from administrators, but we are also looking for feedback from parents. So we have 2 different areas where we're going to seek that feedback. The first is through the professional development council meeting. And so that's looking at our professional development as a whole. And then an academic advisory committee, where community can provide feedback on this as well. Progress monitoring, I know that you're going to get more information, I just want to give you high level. So just to reiterate, our administrators, supervisors, district level facilitators, teacher leaders, teachers, instructional coaches have been trained on the instructional vision. So we've had a pretty large scale training using this document and these ideas. We have developed the math and science instructional walkthrough tools, and then we are integrating this work throughout the other strategic initiatives, as I mentioned earlier. Our next steps, continue our integration into the teacher professional development. We have to come back to it every time, because it's a shift in philosophy, and philosophy doesn't just change. Like, we have to really come back to it and continue to come back to it and talk about what it looks like. Continue our support for our administrators so they can do this work at the building level and do it in a meaningful way for their staff. It isn't just a canned, here's your presentation. This is how can we co-create something that's going to be meaningful for you. We're going to refine our instructional reports based on teacher feedback and refinement of our overall vision based on community, parent, student feedback as well. Refining our implementation tools, and then of course, integration as we plan for next year. Our student growth goal pilot is going into year 2 next year, and this is kind of a foundational component of that, so really working on that. And then of course, as we're planning new higher orientation. So those are big areas of focus right now. All right, this is our question slide and observations. And thank you.
I have a question before you leave.
Yes.
When you start talking about student growth goal year 2,
Yes.
what specific things are you looking for? Looking for not just the SBA changes, what specific items are you looking for?
So as part of the teacher evaluation process, teachers have to create goals for students. And in the past, the goals have been SMART goals, like the SMART SMART goals, where you have different data collection points towards a goal for your class or a small group or for your professional learning community. It's changed to be more directed actually towards this. So how are we actually looking at the kids in front of us, what they need, and planning to meet the needs beyond just 2 points of data. And so it really is a different process, and it's more of a conversation. And it's a state framework that they developed and that we helped to implement.
So it's also a teacher goal.
Yep.
Growth.
Yes, it's all about teacher growth. It's about their growth.
Exactly.
Yep, so it's improving their practice. Yep.
Thank you.
So I had a question about that visioning development. If I heard it right, so please correct me, that some was done at whole staff versus the small groups, or, but, and you're going back to the teachers, the community, but was it really done sort of bottom up versus sort of top down? I mean, that's what I'm hearing. It was more bottom up for that visioning?
So the creation of the actual vision was completely a group effort. So it was a lot of teachers, some paraeducators, counselors, administrators, myself, facilitators, and we actually worked in 2 subgroups, and we really created this overarching vision. And then we focused on ELA and math first.
Okay, so but it was the people doing the work were included, so that when they went back to communicate to their teams, then how do you get buy-in? And then as it's grown out, it's changed a little bit. because you're getting more and more data. But
Absolutely.
that original included, thank you, that just, I think that's a best practice.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Absolutely, and it was a really fun process. I mean, as fun as Zoom after school meetings can be.
No, it sounds like hard work, but it's, it's how you get buy-in versus, Ian coming and saying, or saying this is what the vision is, and everybody's like, yeah. So,
Yes, definitely, thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Callie. Some of our taglines for when we think of our strategic plan, we're always centered around our priority student outcomes.
Yeah.
We also think about our inspire, achieve, thrive theme and moral commitment. And so with that initiative, I think it's just a nice way to hear how are we going to do that. And one of the primary takeaways that I'd like you to hear about Callie's initiative that she shared tonight was that it's an anchor for so many of our, I would say all of our initiatives are instruction focused. And we have several that are more explicitly focused. And you saw that slide how this initiative with the vision is related to the others in so many ways. So I'm very impressed with this team. One example, I'll invite Larry to come on up, is how are we operationalizing this instructional vision with more technical components, but also with a very innovative lens. So how are we looking at our student schedules? How are we looking at our course offerings? And really making sure that our infrastructure aligns to the commitments we're making as articulated by our strategic plan. So with that, welcome Mr. Buckstein.
Thank you. Well, good evening, President Hussein and Board of Directors and Dr. Saltzman. It's my pleasure to give you an update here on Strategic Plan Initiative C1B regarding district-wide expectations for instructional time, master schedules, and course offerings. To date, we are on track with this particular initiative, and there's many components to it, as you'll see this evening. But one of the things that's really interesting about change is there's a part of the change process that isn't necessarily glamorous, right? For example, when you're building a skyscraper, it's not super glamorous when you have to move the earth to level it out, to dig the hole, to lay the foundation. Everybody just loves the shiny building at the end, right? This particular initiative is very much like that work. So we're going to be peeling back the layers a little bit about how the work gets done, so the innovation, so the change, the inspiration, and the opportunity for kids is elevated through the process as a result of that process. So just to begin, this particular initiative is highly involved. To date, if you were to total up the numbers of people who have had hands-on direct impact on the middle school redesign and our high school master scheduling shifts, you're looking at over 100 staff members at this point. Very strong collaboration with our EEA membership in this work, in addition to our EASA, our principals and assistant principals, and then obviously our supportive staff here at the central office. So up above here, you can see just how the work here and the level of involvement that is going on, and I'll elaborate a little bit more into our timelines and our milestones that we've completed in future slides. In particular, yes?
Can you give a little overview of ABL? That's not a
Sure.
a term that I've seen before.
Yeah, so ABL stands for a better lens, as it's described there on the screen. And last year, you may recall, and we have an activity again this year for the board with some of our cabinet members, using ABL or ABLE, a better lens partnership we have, which puts our college and career readiness data into a package that can be monitored over time for growth and improvement, but also a lens on that we take in our high schools to look at data of student course selections so we can improve and recruit students for courses that they are ready to take, that are rigorous, but also create an equity of access and opportunity. So it is a huge component of our equity work within the high schools to make sure that we are creating every opportunity for every student to take a rigorous coursework and be college or career ready in a path that is exciting and engaging to them. So ABLE, you'll see that multiple times throughout the presentation, is a partnership with a company that we are working with last year and this year to put that data together.
Okay, thank you.
So some of our milestones, what you see here on the screen is really where we are at with our middle school redesign. You may recall that last board presentation, we were just at the very beginning of launching the middle school redesign process. And you can see up on the screen just the different sort of timeline and the work that has been completed through the end of 2022 relative to that. And a team of 14 members got together, had to navigate some changes to state requirements for middle school. But in the end, we were able to successfully come up with a middle school design. And as you can see on the left on the screen, this is the sort of generic or template sort of schedule that a middle school student will start to engage in starting next year. Chief among the changes that you can see is a shift. We have one period of English language arts. We saw one period of math and science. You'll notice that we did a shift in the history and elective bands there in the middle, that's the yellow, creating more student choice and opportunity to explore options and pathways that would interest them and engage them in the opportunities that exist at our high schools. We also have a component here to meet a state requirement of 2 times in the middle levels for health. And that focus, again, is not only just health class, but also wellness and social emotional learning. And I'll elaborate a little bit about that work in just a moment. While still meeting the state requirement of a semester of PE each year. And then the opportunity for a year-long or 2 electives as that 6th sort of period of the day. So now, student choice is elevated. Student interest and opportunity to pursue those interests for high engagement is there. And we're working on developing a strong 6 through 12 pathway through our elective courses, particularly with our STEM and CTE courses, where middle school in grades 6, 7, and 8 is exploring those career pathways and what eventually is those choice program options in high school, but also creating pathways that don't dead end when you get to high school, that continue to lead and students are able to build upon their learning, that may end up in a certification, right, at the end of their high school experience that gives them a leg up for students going straight into a career, a leg up on any other student in the area who is has a high school diploma. So that's engaging work that is still to come in the next several years of the initiatives.
Yes. 2 really basic questions. One, why is it required all year for history in 8th grade versus you can do a semester in the other 2 grades?
Yeah, the collaborative process we did with both union PTA membership and district leadership to develop the master schedule. Also looking about the sort of information that students would need to be successful within their high school courses. So as we went through looking at state requirements, but also the depth of knowledge they would need to have to go into high school courses, that's what we ended up agreeing upon in terms of a full year of 8th grade history prepared for high school.
And no health is required in 8th grade?
State requirement is twice within a 3-year period in the middle level. And what we, just to give background, the committee chose to use 6th and 7th grade as the areas for their, not only, again, for health, but for wellness and SEL, because children of those 2 age levels are going through lots of different changes where they need a lot of strategies and supports to navigate middle school. And we thought it best to give them the maximum amount of support during that changing time.
Yeah.
Can I ask
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry. I just asked a quick question because going from 7 to 6, taking out those year-long opportunities for band, orchestra, as well as when they get into 8th grade, Spanish. What was the feedback from parents losing that where the kid could be in band and Spanish?
Just to correct, that opportunity is not lost.
Oh, okay.
This would be band or choir, a full year elective. And then in the 8th grade year, you still have an elective here along with PE. And so as we currently do for students who have that same situation,
Okay.
We're able to adjust and work with the unique needs of students to be able to take 2 rigorous courses in their 8th grade year.
Okay, thank you. Then that's why, because it was what we could do with 7, And the parents were okay with that, or the feedback?
Yeah, we had one parent engagement session, which is on a
Yeah.
future slide here, way back in June, and we didn't receive that level of feedback
okay.
at the time. But yeah, we have not lost opportunities that currently exist in the 7-period schedule with the redesign.
Okay, thank you.
My question is, we had talked about history in the form of civics and also ethnic studies, that we were going to look at how in the middle school those classes could be infused, I guess you would say.
Yeah, excellent.
Is that
So-
possible, or are we looking at that being a high school course?
No, so right now, and I can ask Callie a little more specifically to, she had referenced the work she's doing with the ELA and history middle school redesign teams from the curricular aspect. Those opportunities are being worked on right now.
Okay.
Would you like Callie to come to the mic to speak to that?
That may not be a bad idea, if she can at least just enlighten us with her knowledge.
Sure.
Oh, goodness, a lot of airtime tonight. Oh, okay, perfect. So for the history work specifically, because we talked about Washington State history is graduation requirement, so it has to be, that's 7th grade, so that's stays there. And originally, I think the team that did all this work had talked about adding that second section as an elective for ethnic studies or for a civics type course. And as we reviewed the State Board of Education's profile of graduate report, there's kind of 2 conflicting pieces of information. So one, we already have the course at high school level. So we have our ethnic studies and civics, year-long college and high school course. They are not making that a graduation requirement currently. So what we did is we took this, the elective, you see next to Washington State, and we created a human geography course that embedded the tenets of ethnic studies, because that was the State Board of Education's suggestion. They said these tenets should be involved in any sort of redesign that you do. And so we used the STEM-Bridge work, that frame, to inform the development of that scope and sequence. We also use the, sorry, Larry, taking your time. I'll talk about this too. We also use the AP Human Geography framework to develop the course. So we have these 5 themes, and we embedded the tenets of culture responsive practice in there, but it mirrors, or I guess it doesn't mirror because it's not an AP course, but it prepares students to take AP Human Geography in high school. So that's the way that we went with that.
And I would also say that we're utilizing existing curricula, so we did not need to do an adoption. We actually took, thank you.
In here.
We did. I was using my teacher voice, and I apologize. But we did use our existing 7th grade curricula right now as around world geography. We utilized that book as the framework, embedded the STEM-Bridge tenets around some of the ethnic studies and civics, and we built a broader course utilizing existing curricula. So we were trying to be very good fiscal stewards, but also we were trying to make sure that we prepared students for opportunities as they progress through high school. And Larry really will talk, Mr. Fleckenstein will talk specifically about how they coordinate and align the classrooms, the classes, and the coursework when we get into high school as well.
And those courses that are going to be offered in high school will be offered in which classes now? In which the curriculum ethnic studies has been developed within the coursework? In which classrooms?
In the ethnic studies course that we have as a college and high school course, it's an elective course, but it also incorporates the civics class at the high school.
At the high school.
And that's at all 3 comprehensive high schools.
And all 3 comprehensive. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
And the program did grow.
And the program is?
It's growing.
It's growing. Oh, most definitely. It should be.
We've had an increase in enrollment this year.
Oh,
At all schools.
At all schools. Mhm.
Is this?
Oh, yeah, well, it's, for the ELA, it's a shortening of instructional time.
Yes.
And so the process that was gone through to cut back on what teachers are needing to get through for the year, that was done. Teachers provided input. What did that look like?
Currently in process.
Okay.
So we had our first meeting, and it was, you know, I was a former ELA teacher, so I can commiserate. We had lots of thoughts and feelings and conversations, and we talked about it, because really it is a big transition. And so we have to honor that this is a transition for our teachers, and we have to go through a process. So the first meeting focused on that and really dug into the standards. So what are the content and skills we actually need at each grade level to focus on? Tomorrow we meet, I'll give you a little preview, we are doing work around those content and skills, but then also researching best practices in instruction with our instructional vision, and then going into our current maps and scope and sequence to say, how do we prioritize this? How do we give teachers some flexibility to meet the needs of their students while keeping to the state standards and our curriculum? And so it's a really hard process, but the group is really great. So we have representatives from each middle school. We have 2 to 3 from each school.
I just recognize an increased student load that those teachers now are going to have just naturally.
Yeah, that is a top concern. Yeah. Oh, and we also did reach out to high school teachers to say, how are you doing this? So high school teachers currently have that load. So I have about 3 slides of what high school teachers are doing to do that work. So, yeah.
Well, at Everett Public Schools, teamwork makes the dream work, so I appreciate all my colleagues, and as I shared the very first slide, the integration of so many people in so many departments to get this foundational piece for innovation off the ground. Thank you, Callie. Other celebrations of recent work, the picture that you see on the right there is our original development work with the Able Schools data set. They utilize information that we have within our data system, and then they put it into an analytics tool that we're going to share with you today about what that really looks like and how we use that in our high school to improve what we do in master scheduling and student opportunity. Other celebrations, as Callie mentioned, this is actually some pictures of our history and ELA middle school teachers meeting and collaborating on the work that Callie was just describing. And she's utilizing a Canvas page, so all the work sits and lives in one place, so it's accessible to all. You can see how the progress is going, and making that work very visible and transparent. And it is fantastic work for innovation, because change is hard, right? But change that's necessary to support all students is necessary work. Shifting attention a little bit, as we came back from winter break, you can see on the screen there's a series of timelines and deadlines where a lot of work is happening as we're speaking. One of the things about this strategic plan initiative is once we get back in January, the train gets rolling and the train doesn't stop, because master schedules have to be built, student registration happens at a certain time, and all that foundational work has to be laid. So what I'm excited about is that we're doing great work, but also we're on track. And so far right now, at the beginning of January, we have focused on our work with Able Schools and how we are getting our data sets, working with counselors and principals to review that data in preparation for student course registrations, having one-on-one conversations with kids to help them see that they are more capable of accessing more rigorous and engaging instruction than maybe perhaps they currently are, and building up their confidence to do so. Just tomorrow, we will be engaging in the middle school redesign work. We will be meeting with our middle level administrators to review and finalize the communication plans that we have for staff, students, and parents around the shifting of the middle school schedule to 6 periods, which you'll see on the later slide, are rolling out that information on a timeline. Celebrations of this middle school redesign work, on the left you can see we have been going through course codes and streamlining and removing, pruning, if you will, old codes from the system and aligning all 5 middle schools. So no matter which school you go to in Everett Public Schools, not only do you have the access, but if you're in this course at this school, it's exactly the exact same title. And as Callie is describing the curricular work that teachers are doing, your experience for one school, if you had to, for some reason, move in the middle of the year from one middle school to another, you're not missing a beat. And that's very important in the middle school redesign alignment work for our students that we serve here.
I have a question. If you were at any one school within the district, are the same courses going to be offered? So it's not, what about those students that say move from North Middle School down and move now over to Heatherwood? Are there any particular courses that they may have taken at North that, would prepare them for a certain course not being taught at Heatherwood? Just an example.
Yeah, to give a very generalized answer is the majority of the student schedule is going to be from here to here, and you're not going to skip a beat. The last remaining work I kind of launched the presentation with is we are working on a 6 through 12 STEM CTE, the elective pathways. So what is explored in middle school results in a direct alignment to the options that they have at all the high schools in Everett Public Schools, right? That work takes a lot of thoughtfulness and preparation to do that. The timeline we have for the middle school redesign did not yield enough time. We're in the middle of that right now, and it will be work over the next 2 years. We're gonna need to do a thorough alignment piece there. That's where the exciting part that is though in our high schools. Not only do we align the middle school experience, but creating opportunity and access at the high schools, but also this fantastic opportunity for reimagining how high school can be very different than it is today, just a handful of years from now, with the access that we have for kids. But I don't want to spoil next year's presentation. I'm going to leave it there. Okay.
The implementation for this, is there any concern that certain kids that are in 6th, 7th grade right now going into their 8th grade year, maybe this schedule won't align for them in one way or the other with courses that they've already taken if they have more degrees of freedom than the previous schedule? Is there any concern for that?
Well, especially going into 8th grade, this particular, if I were to go back to the middle school design slide, there's more flexibility in the 8th grade year than there is in, say, 6th grade.
Right.
So repeating courses, we don't have kids repeat courses now. We wouldn't have a reason to do that then. Some of the work that is referenced, but I'll be more explicit about, is the work that we're doing with our special education department on creating more opportunity and access for students to be included within general educational support through different instructional models. So that work's also currently going on right now in preparation for next year.
But then I think to add on to that, for the, like what I asked about the science and band or orchestra, so this kid is in orchestra, wants to go all the way up to Jackson, but now wants to do Spanish, then that's a conversation with the counselor for that kid saying you now need to give PE a different way.
Yeah, and we have a process for that right now, and that process continues.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. And then on the right there, just to move forward, is you're starting to see some of the materials we're developing for course registrations coming up here in March for the middle level. This is just a snapshot of our recent work with Able Schools on January 12th with the high school counselors and principals, looking at the data that we're going to share with you in just a moment to explore for the career readiness pathways. Data. Last year we shared the more college readiness pieces. We're going to take a look at the career readiness information. And just to remind you just a little bit about what we saw last year, there are 4 levers of academic change that ABLE utilizes within their work: persistence, course progression, advanced coursework, and with an overarching goal of equity within that. And that ends up generating a score based on student data, an overall AIM score, which really just denotes academic intensity for college readiness. Did they take a rigorous score? Did they take a rigorous schedule? Are they advancing themselves in the progressions, or did they dead end where they're at to take a, quote, easier course? We want students to continue to progress, and you may recall the board adopted a policy about advancing them to the next course automatically, that you have to purposely go in and say, no, I don't want to do that. So we are, at the policy level, you've set policy to help our students to take those rigorous courses that are going to help them in college and career. At this time, what I would ask is, we have several cabinet members who are going to join, a board member. They're going to bring a laptop over, and on that laptop is the Able Schools data analysis tool. And they're going to walk through with you just the career readiness data. It's brand new data set that Able was able to put together from our presentation last year to today. And what's exciting about it, as I stated earlier, is it allows us to not only see last year's graduating class, but compare the progression of progress we've made over time from previous graduating years to make better informed decisions. And over time, what we see is a measure of our continued success. What you will not see this year, because it is the first time we've had it as data, is you're not gonna see a big difference from last year's data, because we haven't put intentional work on it yet. But that's the exciting part I'm talking about for the future, is now it gives us a lens to really create this 6 through 12 pathway. So if I can have my colleagues please come join your board of director. We are going to just take 10 or so minutes for them to walk you through what that data looks like.
We go to them.
I think of you.
We need carrots.
Oh, that's good.
All right. So
This is, it's really exciting. So they just share data. So which school would you like to be at? Is there a third that you would like? So. And then a student takes no CT.
So I'm just gonna mention.
So basically what we can do is we can start looking at essentially because data allows us to be like that. I've done are they like all based on and it's not
This is like
right, and then last year. And this actually gives us our CTC 90s. So in 2022 class, we had just overall 70%, and they love this degree was data, right? Which is an implemented overall, it means it doesn't necessarily have to be and then a concentrator, which is identified as taking 3 or 4 years ago. So kids who might be really taking over to have that manufacturer, they're taking over. It's not a large project, but it's one of our goals is to helping students who are
they're qualified
to really have a pathway that's going to help them.
So, how
It is pretty similar, we don't have a large location. I changed this to.
And then also, so we have that.
Readiness, so it's relatively the same, about 70%. And one of the things that they're really emphasizing is because it's it's giving kids more opportunities to kind of and different kids who might have defects or if you and we've done a good job right. So kids can kind of feel but it is, what we really want to see is a concentration rather than like here, this is where we they may be choosing to do the question is why are they not engaging here? Maybe they did yeah, they have a specific plan for their college, typically speaking, college focus, and or they may be like programs, right? Like they may say, I'm not going to do digital and so that might be a little to take it to computer.
aren't really.
We'd like for them to be able to do that, especially in our high schools right now, so when the sounds have, because one of the first laptops that I use, we want them to be able to say, okay, let's try it.
You'll notice that.
And so this is actually what I love about the able schools data, is it actually also looks at their effective practices.
You can see a
And
lot.
look at how our data and so as you have your kids who are following that with using now, what's even harder is like, you know, but you can actually start looking at CTE field. And this is just what's interesting is that now has the academic sciences where you can see there's it when it gets to science there's forms and
then down here.
so like people's hair
So the way it's representative applications design, you see white students, more females, not, you know what I mean? Males aren't really paying they're like kind of big.
not as proficient as the rest of the time.
They're like, they're like, and then reverse is not.
This actually breaks it down. So you can put some of these components, and the way that they analyze some of these things, each one will be different. You can say what kids are taking. And we're doing a lot of this. Last year and this year, this piece of it, and they are able to process through it, and they just don't do it to see. And when you start looking at the size of
what's the next step?
the academic and we can get the data, but they are some of their resources are much more helpful. It's clear and it really gives you an idea about, like, if a kid starts in algebra 1 year, how are they can actually so it's beneficial for counselors to work.
Counselors identify.
We certainly can do it. I think one of the things that we're hoping is that as we get to will really be able to pull all of the data. But this is a cleaner way we have to really get started and doing a lot more information. Some of but maybe that's an opportunity so are the patterns that you're seeing that are there patterns that you see that are relative to different colors, different career readiness courses, or anything that you're noticing?
How many are non-elective credits?
Yeah.
Very small scale in terms of not but just more
So when you say
well, and the one question that I wondered about some of these pieces is depending on where they are in their English language.
So anyway, I'll just go one more thing here to computer and
English language, and how does that impact your ability to select, which makes middle school, if they're looking at transition, 11th grade, they're not going to be able to access some of those courses, they don't have it.
And it's required, so it's not like.
60 of us.
And that we offer that as well.
Or, and,
Oh, I
It also
But what they're saying is they can just get once they start getting into something like trying to let's say, one of the things that we found is actually what they do in the review is they translate requirements, and then they go, okay, this is what it means, and then they write it, and it's really good to it, and then they turn it back. And so they're finding these workarounds to be able to.
This is just
Rather than having them in the shelter.
So we can take a look at.
But it is like, so this kind of, that's one example. They're not gonna, it's sort of easier, they may not necessarily have that. Now, 82 students is actually not bad in this data spread. But it's kind of interesting kind of seeing the breakdown of some of those different pieces. For instance, the transplantation as well as the population. It's a little bit more like that, but 295 is pretty statistic number. And that's cascade, and I don't know.
So yeah, they are going what it does is the team goes in and they have to set it up.
And they have, Cascade is, Cascade's CTE programs are actually pretty robust because they've been doing the implementation there for the longest time. So this is Everett Public Schools comparable to and while you have a greater percentage of students in that location, it's relatively the same. You have that's a little bit more there. And then these are, of course, taking my second development, so that they've got health science as well. Although I would say one of the things that was really, just recently, last week, it was at Everett and the two students that I had, one the instructor was sort of an academically, but he's like, I want to get my that's pretty dangerous, and not always easy to do, because then dad is out there, this is what he's going to do, and in time, this is what it's going to do. You're like, I'm going to work my dad, I can get a certification to community colleges. And he said, I can really do this class, but what do you need to know about community as well as that you're just around to do this financial literacy course. I learned that what's possible is was also because when you were credit, he can't get it yet. He says he has to go PSB and he has to he said, Edmonds does it, he just don't know any components or something, maybe short of yeah, like industry certification. I actually ran into her today when I was out to and she said, I'm working with him on updates and applications, because he says, well, I could just go down one application where you something that you have to, even though all that school is free, yeah, you have to think about licensing, you know, those kinds of things. So she's like, trying to get her out of the student. So she's probably taking everything I'm gonna take this test, but she's like, no, he has to go through that.
All right. I want to thank everybody for their excited engagement, exciting work. Really excited to share with you the tools that we're using at the high school level to really improve what we're doing in master scheduling and access for kids. What I'd ask right now is if any board or director just has a notice or wondering or something that they saw that they'd like to share that was something that I learned, you know, if you wouldn't mind sharing with the group. Can I start with
I'll press.
Oh, I have one thing, because it would, I was noticing on the careers, the types of classes, the big buckets of classes. We started with Jackson, and I said the trades is pretty small, kind of like a cascade, and it's about 3 times. And so while we did talk about middle school, whichever school you go to, we also are starting to build these choice programs. So that should be expected, that trade should go up at Cascade because of the classes that are available at Cascade versus classes that are available at Jackson. Is my understanding of that correct?
I think what you're describing is accurate, that if there's more trades based through that choice, the advanced manufacturing program at Cascade, yes, there are course offerings that are there and and students are participating in them. So you're gonna see an elevated participation in that. I think holistically, this data, what it allows us to do is to see what our students are most engaged in and how we can continue to develop that to meet the needs and the interests of students, but also for industry as well.
Well, we did talk about that, the one-off classes versus a pathway of classes, so that it's an elective could lead to something, or an elective is just an elective. And so it's sort of not a dead end. But it's an interesting discussion.
And I'm super excited for your next presentation with Anthony, because Anthony's doing fantastic work and he's going to highlight some of that about that connection to industry and the trades piece too. So I don't want to do any spoilers on that. So.
What I did find out was that the communication seems to be very large of participation at the 2 schools that we looked at. I did not get an opportunity to look at Jackson, but I can only assume that communications or areas and with the CTE courses in communication tends to also be very large. That may be the telling sign of where kids are focusing their growth at, as far as the community is leading them in those types of career paths where communications is very large.
Yep. And Director Mitchell, I want to make sure I answered your question thoroughly.
Yes.
Was there another piece of that?
No.
Okay, thank you. Any other sharing?
I think, to me, the real piece to this is what you do with the data, because, we're looking at stuff like, oh, there's, lots of females who are Hispanic in the medical assistant program, which is very reflective of, the hospital staffing, and how you change that. Or, there's more men in the computer science engineering, which has been history forever, and how do you change that? And to me, that's the piece. Like, some of this data was not that surprising. It was just like, oh, how do we, create the equity, I guess.
Absolutely. And that last portion of the data that you saw on the underrepresented or overrepresented groups is what allows counselors, the information administrators, to reach out during registration time, which is just coming here February, March, and counseling students about what opportunities exist and how to address those just inequities. Yeah, absolutely. So just to finish up, some challenges and opportunities. It's exciting work. like I said, the skyscraper, moving the earth, pouring the foundation, is the most glamorous part of building a skyscraper, but the net result of it when we're done is something that's truly amazing and is an accomplishment. So I'm really excited and very grateful for all the departments and all the people who are involved in this. Like I said, there's well over 100 people already who have put their hands on some aspect of not only middle school redesign, but our work in the master scheduling development. So some of our challenges and opportunities, we're on that strict timeline. We are working on developing and supporting our middle schools and our middle school staff to prepare for building a 6-period master schedule, for which they have not done before. They've always done 7, and there is some technical changes that go with that. We're working on, in collaborating with special education and our ML departments, for those riser and transition meetings that occur prior to next school's registrations, to make sure not only do those students have the right courses that they need that may be specific, but also ensuring that they are scheduled into creating access and opportunity.
Will we be getting any type of presentation on just that, the special ed and the ML student departments, for how we are incorporating them into the whole mix and how their growth is in the future?
I don't know if that's scheduled or what, but I'm sure there's.
It would be good because it tends to be one of the areas in which we don't do as well as others, so I would like to see.
I believe it's March.
In March?
It's March.
It's March.
Thank you. Thank you.
And then our next piece is, really getting ready for those people who are teaching new courses perhaps next year in the middle level. We're preparing them in professional development through the early late spring to get them ready to teach those courses. Our big deliverables in this initiative is obviously master schedules that meet the needs of students and continue to grow our offerings for students that lead to college and career readiness. And so you can see there's our timeline of how we progress monitor master schedule development at the secondary level. Our next steps in January, we are beta testing some mock schedules of the middle school 6-period day right now. Trying to work out as many bugs as you will to prepare principals for how to efficiently build a master schedule. And then we're working on our communication plan with staff, including all the middle school principals and assistant principals and counselors in that communication plan. So again, very high involvement with groups. We're going to be finalizing the materials here just shortly in the next 2 weeks that will be used for registration, and principals' communication plan to families, staff, and students around the middle school redesign. And then we're going to be working on course selections in March. So at this time, are there any questions about this particular initiative's progress?
Just a question about the timing. So the master schedules are going to be done at the end of June, but don't kids register before then?
Yeah, so in March, that's when the students will go and actually select their courses, and they have all of March to pretty much get them into the student information system. Spring break happens, and then when we come back from spring break, we do a data cleanup. So we run some reports to make sure that there's no inaccuracies in what students have selected. For example, if ninth graders selecting on a senior-only course would be sort of the errors we have to correct. So there's some data.
Or junior that doesn't choose English.
Or junior that doesn't choose English. And right about mid-April is when we're ready to actually run sections, like when you start to determine how many sections of each course that you need, and you can start laying it on the schedule. But that is a very iterative process, and we always have to have a draft before the last day of school for staff.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fleckenstein. I just really want to compliment Dr. Salzman's vision in this area, and Mr. Fleck and the whole staff. You can see the team approach here, just to make sure that middle school is a very meaningful, developmentally appropriate experience that meets them where they are and then prepares them for their coming years as high schoolers. And just to name also that this initiative worked last year, prior years, also in elementary, and looking at the instructional day, so you can see the development to scale over time.
Okay.
Yes, sir?
I think what makes it successful too, over 100 teachers giving input, right? That is the buy-in right there, because this is a daunting task to have a redesign of your middle schools, but I think when you have that voice, it makes a difference in the system.
Okay, without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Anthony Anderson, who's going to let you know an update about how flexible learning and choice are interacting with our instructional vision.
Thank you. Well, based on Larry's presentation, all I need to do is say thank you and have a good night.
You don't get out of it that easy.
Really, describe it. My strategic initiative works around ensuring flexible learning opportunities and choice programs are accessible for all students. I have that as yellow because I had to take a step back based on some of the things I was seeing in our system and looking at our infrastructure to make sure, and also working with the middle school redesign of making sure that we had programs that led to outcomes. We didn't want to just create things that just had a dead end to it. So looking at that, one of the things I would ask is, when we look at our strategic outcomes, many of these strategic outcomes look at progress monitoring points to get to ensure students are prepared to succeed in college and career. When we get there, we don't have time to get them back. Everything else here, we have time to make changes. So when we look at that, how are we addressing and making sure students are being successful? So when I look at this data, I'm looking at students leaving our system. Now, this is in one of our data platforms, not our local data platforms, but one of the state data platforms. And if we look at this, it's showing 32% going to 4-year, 31% going to 2-year or a career and technical center, and then we show that 37% are not enrolled. So when we look at that, I got with my team and I said, we really need to look at what we're doing and how we can do better. So if I go back to this slide, I ask you to write down your response to that question on your pad. Now let's convert this to numbers. If we graduated 1,600 students per year, this will equate to, in the first year, 4-year, 512 students, 2-year, 496 students, and then not enrolled, 592 students. After that year, in year 2, that not enrolled jumps to 786 students. That's almost 50% of our students.
And we can't capture military service, because we do hear a lot of kids that go off to military service.
This data, I can't really go into depth of how we're tracking, but this is what's showing up on the state.
On the state.
ERD.
Yeah, because I think this is just all.
website.
What happens if kids go out of state for school? Does that information get back and get captured anywhere?
I would have to ask Kathy.
Yes, it's the National Student Clearinghouse data that we receive from Navient, so we get the national data back.
Right, and that's only if the kid actually replies to it.
No, we get records directly from colleges.
From the colleges?
Yes, and for the military question, we capture data in their senior year, in their high school and beyond plan, as to whether they're interested in the military. So we are able to capture it at that end. It doesn't confirm that they actually joined a branch, but it gives us some leading indicators.
Yeah, because I do, you see the handful of kids at graduation that are wearing their colors already.
Yep.
So they've already, enlisted. I think that's a really impressive number for the 4-year going to their second year, 94%. That seems like a really good percentage rate.
It is a high percentage.
It's very high.
Then we look at, we're losing 6% also.
Oh, yeah, no, I know.
So when we look at moving on, one of the things I want to talk about is our CTE programs and our choice programs. When I said I stepped back was because I had to build and work with the team and work with everyone here to build stronger CTE programs that didn't just end with industry certification. Because you can get industry certification for a first aid card, but how does that help you outside? You can get it for OSHA. What does that do for you? So some of the things we're doing is reflecting on and going back and trying to make sure we're aligning with industry. Pulling in and making sure our equipment aligns to industry standards. As you can see here, we had a kitchen from the Brady Bunch. Now we have modernized equipment in one of our kitchens, and we started at Sequoia. So we wanted to make sure that we address all students, starting with our middle school and our elementary schools, looking at some of the programs they have and trying to better align those programs to be across all grade levels, so that we are getting students, to your point, Director Mason, getting students earlier. As you can see, we have just as many females in this picture as we do males. So if we can connect those programs to our middle school and then further up to our high schools, now we can get our females more engaged in some of these computer science type courses. So one of the things I would ask is that when we look at CTE and we look at that as a choice program, we have to look at that as not just something to get students in school, but an avenue for students when they go through school to get to their future. Other celebrations is, what we're doing is trying to, as Mr. Fleckenstein said, really work with the team to build these pathways. As you can see on your sheet you have here, we're trying to connect those pathways with what we're doing in middle school. So if you look across, the orange, red, red, that's orange on the bottom. So we'll go red. The red is all of our middle school courses that we are proposing to put in, so we have a true alignment. That's just connecting with CTE. It allows us to creatively use our resources to make sure we have sustainable pathways as we go through the system. So when we look at our stakeholders and how we are reaching out to get assistance with some of this work, and when we look at the flexible learning opportunities, that means that we have students going out in the field. We have people coming in helping us. We get guest speakers coming in, trying to build a portfolio so we can have P through 12 so that students understand careers and local careers in our regional market. That will give students the opportunity to say, okay, I can be that. I can do that. And, as I said before, it goes back to my initiative, C2B. So, if our students can see it, they know they can be it. What I'm also proud of is our website. So when we talk about equity, what we built on our website is when our job board is usually posted in each school. We collected all the job boards, because it might be a job in Jackson's job board, that's not an Everett's job board. So we put them all in one centralized location. And what we're going to do is create a QR code to also go with this, so that students can pull it up right on their phone and have jobs across the entire region. So it's not like they only have it on the Jackson's job board.
How are we engaging Sequoia in all of this? Because there are a lot of opportunities for Sequoia students to get involved in CTE. I know we're focusing on the pathways for the 3 comprehensive schools, but is the opportunity for them to engage at any one of the other other comprehensive schools is great too. And how do we ensure that we give them that opportunity that may not be at their school?
Well, when you look at it across the board, as I said with the first slide, that first slide was family and community consumer science. That was the kitchen at Sequoia we upgraded. Also, they have digital photography. So they do have courses at the Sequoia location. We're right now working with the principal at Sequoia to look at energy and sustainability and how we can connect them with that program. And we're looking at it from the farm to the table program with them to see how we can actually do that.
But they can engage at any of the other schools too. They can go to Cascade for anything, and Jackson. as well as they can go to Everett High, correct?
Right now, the only program we have where they can do a 3-period is at the advanced manufacturing at Cascade. So they would have to look at, if we have it in their schedule where it's the last period, then they can take the last period.
They got that travel time.
Oh, and we have the
Travel time.
ROTC also.
Okay.
And snow out.
Well, they can go to snow out, but you were talking about
Within our school district.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're not set up for that. They have to go to the point that Dr. Woods just brought up,
But
snow out. But we're looking at how we can create programs internally to the point that was brought up where they're not locked into a 3-period. And I'll give you a for instance. If a student is in AP courses somewhere and says, I want to know more about advanced manufacturing, we need to put that as a single class so that that student has access to it, because in the 3-period, they do their math equivalency and their English equivalency. But if those students don't want to do that, we want to start building single classes so students have access. And then they can make the choice of, I don't need the English, I don't need the math, I just want the actual skills. So how we progress monitor. Our General Advisory Council, we used to present to them. Now we're asking them to tell us, what are we doing that needs to align better with industry? So that's how our meetings are. We've actually taken a few of the members out to look at a few of our locations, and they're helping us modernize our equipment. Yes.
Could you expand on the advisory council, which industries are represented in there, and just a little bit more about how often?
We have representatives even from the Art Center. We have representatives from education. We have representatives from Boeing. We have representatives from smaller organizations within the area that deals with advanced manufacturing.
I think don't we post the members on the website? You can actually, you gotta go a few clicks in, but I don't know if it's up to date,
but those are, it's up to date. We just had a recent meeting, so we're now having someone from our biotechnical industry also in local universities.
How can you meet? Is it
health also? Yes. Kaiser. Not Kaiser. Kaiser's a college.
Everett.
Providence. Kaiser.
How many times do you meet?
Oh, we meet. We have a meeting coming up this month, and then we won't have another one for another 2 months. And it will be in the. I can get you the information.
It's not.
No, yes.
Curious.
And then we reviewed a number of students completing employable skills assessments or programs. And what that means is one of the programs we started last year was our Intro to Ed. Those students take a para-pro test, where as soon as they turn 18, they can go apply for a job. We've had 2 students already apply there. And then working with our DEI department to monitor our data, which an example of that is working also with our MLL and our special education department to make sure that we are meeting the needs of students. Yes, not students, but yes, students. And as you can see, we've had some improvement over the last year. So when we talk about access, we want to make sure that we reach every student, because when we talk about equity, it's not just one group, it's all groups. So we want to make sure that we have an emphasis on, and I think you asked a question regarding that earlier.
Yes, thank you.
Captain was saying. Milestones and timeline. Our dual language program, working under the leadership of their region, has really, and with our MLL department, has really done a great job of adding their next grade level. And then they'll be adding another grade level next year. And as I said, everything is ongoing because we're trying to be better and modify things so that we are doing the best we can for students. The STEM schools are working with their teachers to make it a STEM school by integrating STEM throughout all the curriculum. And the only way they can do that is if they have communication, with all their teachers and get the buy-in. So that's what they're doing now, working and communicating with their teachers from the principals, and I'm assisting principals with that.
That one, do we have STEM schools and not STEM schools?
Yes. We have STEAM academies too, and then we have STEM rotations in other schools. So there's 9 STEM specialists across our district. And I'll talk a little bit more to this about how we've built programs before. So when you have these programs, the STEAM programs can fit into certain things, but eventually if we look at our other programs, like our dual language, aligning up with our language programs in middle school and then going to high school, you can also do the same thing with your arts programs. And so you can have theme schools at the elementary level, and when they feed into the middle, they get more specific about where they want to plan out to. So that is giving to Mr. Fleckenstein's point, students the choice to choose, and then the choice after they leave our system to go into a career or college.
You talked about the STEAM academies being 2 schools as mentioned here, Madison and Woodside. You mentioned there are 9 other STEM elementary schools?
There's 9 other elementary schools that have STEM specialists in them. So when they have their rotation, like their arts, and they have individuals in their school.
But there are some elementary schools that don't have STEM or STEAM.
Well,
specialists.
Are you looking at it as a program? Because eventually, when you look at STEM, it's an integration into what you're already doing in your school.
Right.
So, for instance, when you look at what the letters stand for, is science, technology, engineering, and math. So how do you enhance the programs that you already have and establish a culture where it's a cross-curricular theme in the school to make it and give it more of a STEM focus?
That's it, exactly.
So that is not taking place at this time. They're doing it in a rotation.
Okay.
And where you have, and just one of the barriers, we're really trying to get our teachers to understand the new curriculum we're bringing in around literacy, math, and all those before we can get them to jump into anything where they're doing the cross-curricular integration.
Are there areas in which we need to work more at to ensure that it's equity across the board in all regions at all schools, elementary schools especially, so that they're preparing them for middle schools and then following through with preparing the students for the curriculum that's available in high school?
Well, that's an interesting point, because when you bring up the theme of equity across our programs, the equity comes with the teachers doing what they're supposed to do with the curriculum in front of them and making sure those students have a solid foundation so that they can fan off in any other areas. So when we have programs, you still have to focus on if the curriculum is solid enough and if they're following the design curriculum, because as I said, science, technology, engineering, and math, if we want to focus on STEM alone, when you look at those, if we're doing what we should be doing in the classroom, the students will have the foundational skill. And as you can see with some of the data, we're not meeting those needs.
We're not meeting the needs.
Right. So that's some of the work that our curriculum team is doing to make sure that we're providing teachers with the skills to meet the needs of the students in front of them, because our students' demographics are ever changing.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to be able to adjust and meet the needs of the students and give them what you need them.
So there's still work to be done.
So, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, your original question was those 9 STEM specialists, they hit all of the elementary schools that are not STEAM academies, right?
They're in specific schools.
They're tied to specific schools, okay?
But they don't hit all schools.
Okay.
Right.
So there's still work to be done.
But do you get that curriculum across the board? That's the question.
Well, the curriculum that, I'll let the doctor.
So our STEM specialists that are in the 9 elementary schools, not inclusive of Woodside and Madison. Thank you. The 9 school specialists, those are coming out of a basic ed allocation for planning time for specialists. So it's much like our art programs. As we're growing and developing those, we're increasing that. a decade ago, we did not have nearly the number of STEM teachers in those schools as we do today. We're continuing to grow those pieces. Our basic education curriculum around science and mathematics, which is in the classroom with a generalist teacher, is robust and continuing to do that. We're still looking for creative ways to utilize that planning time with basic ed, which fluctuates depending on the full-time enrollment of each school, to generate those courses. Where we have the opportunities to have those STEM specialists, we're looking for robust opportunities for students to explore things like robotics and computer design and technology in a more intentional way. And that's what Mr. Anderson has been working with STEM specialists of how can we help to make sure that we have some coordination and alignment where it exists. And then also step 2 is growing those programs where we can. But it is limited when it is a basic education blended and it's coming out of planning time. Which is why middle school redesign and giving kids opportunities to explore those electives, having really clear opportunities for kids to say, oh, I might try robotics because I was in the robotics club in elementary school, and maybe I try it and it's not for me. I still have opportunities to try other electives that are equally as robust but might be in a different pathway, like in fine arts and things like that. So we do have room to grow, but we are getting better than we have been in the past.
Anthony, can you elaborate to the board about the themes? You mentioned the theme schools.
Well, in prior districts, some of our elementaries were IB schools. So you put them on a pathway where they were going to, students who were in there might take an accelerated track. But everyone had access at the IB elementary school because it's not just a program within the school, it's an entire school. So we did take a trip to Bellingham to look at incorporating the IB program in our elementary school. But as I said, we're learning new curriculum now. To put that on the teacher and make that shift would be a lot of work. So you can also look at a fine arts STEAM school where they have a fine arts program and then they take that program and then they can venture out into the middle schools or decide this middle schools program might have more of what I want. So theme schools at the elementary level feed into when you have the choice option with parents to say, okay, this school has this theme, but it requires a lot of work because it has to be a whole staff mentality when you're doing theme school, and it has to be integrated within. Perfect example is a school that might have a fine arts. So across all the grade levels, the curriculum they use might be about musicians, might be about artists, and they're reading about them, and they might be doing the work around them. Their math might be about how does the color spectrum work, and how does this, and the science, and all of those things integrate together to give you that theme, but it's still following the standards.
How does that, sorry, yeah, because you saw the question in my face, because I don't have a poker face. Like, Emerson is an immersion school, but half of the school is immersion, half of the school isn't, but the whole school is immersion. So like, even if you were a fine arts or a themed school, like IB is not gonna hurt any child, but say my neighborhood school, because I, for transportation reasons, whatever, need my daughter to go to the transportation school, if it is a fine arts school, but my daughter isn't, not my daughter, a daughter, has no art, anything, would there still be a path for those kids for a gen ed in that context? Or how does that, I mean, that may be a later discussion, but it's, because I like the Emerson where it's not everybody is learning, I mean, eventually everybody's gonna learn Spanish because it's all around them, but there are pathways for those neighborhood kids that's their neighborhood school and the family, for whatever reason, wants an English.
It's like Lighthouse too.
Yeah.
A choice opt-in, but you still have your
Neighborhood,
traditional.
yeah.
And that's a school within a school.
Yeah.
That's the school within a school. The difference with a theme school is you're still following the standards, but you're integrating some of the music within.
Oh, okay.
So you're not requiring them to be musicians, but they're gonna learn about it, and then they're gonna go to a music
And they're not
class.
gonna be worse off for.
Right. And doing our middle school redesign work and really looking at solidifying our pathways is how we're really connecting choice and CTE and having them merge together by creating the pathway overlap. So if we go back to this, I would just ask if anyone wants to share what they wrote down. Then you're clearing your throat to share. Wait, 5.
Well, I wrote down first, for that, that especially for that continuation, that we hear that some kids just aren't ready for the rigor of college. But then also, and I know it's one of our values, that perseverance. And so it's how do they have the perseverance even if they're not ready for the rigor? But at the same time, that you can't back up once you're, a senior graduating, but how do you back up to those kids? And we've tried to do with our high school and beyond plans, but really getting them to vision and really, I think we've worked hard at it, but obviously, with whatever 40% of those kids we're missing it, that they're not able to see for themselves what they're capable of. They're not able to see for themselves going to community college, going to a university, going into the military, going into, something is missing for a high proportion of our kids. They can't see it for themselves. And it could be financial, it could be lots of other things, but to me, I think that's a question we need to answer.
I don't know, for me, it looks like, how are we linking what they do and receive from the time they come in at ECAP? So I'm taking the kids way back, not kindergarten, but even because we have kids at ECAP. How are we focused in on what they're getting at that point and every point, and ensuring their growth all the way up? And like you mentioned, providing a clear articulation with higher ed partners, even with colleges, and for the career. We're talking to them and partnering with them. What do our kids need to be receiving all the way from ECAP, all the way through middle school, through high school and beyond, and we're working together to mesh that so that kids know what's available to them. And we're giving them the opportunity in high school through internship programs. We're allowing our teachers to get that externship programs so they know what the, higher ed as well as the industry needs, so they can supplement, I guess you would say, the curriculum that they're delivering to our students all along the path. And we're giving them the opportunity to dabble in a lot of different things. We're taking the kids to, Boeing when they have a new airplane on the tarmac, so they can walk up and see what, how planes are built, and, all of that. That's what I look at. How are we preparing our kids for that? Because, once they graduate, Mama doesn't want to say they're still on my couch, and I need to make sure they're out of my house,
Agreed. So I want to take your question I gave you, and then I want to share that with the team I work with. So under the umbrella of choice and CTE, we can do a better job of doing some of the things you asked. And that's the task I've been given by my direct supervisor, Dr. Salzman, and our general advisory committee. They challenge us. They'll be challenging us more and more about how we connecting students with industry. And then when you look at that data, that really impacted the team I work with, they say we have to do a better job. And even the teachers that saw the data in our teachers meeting. So I want to show you something. It's the wrong one. It's not there. Okay. I have another picture of a student that it's not there, so I'll just let it go. It was a very powerful picture of a student in our AP Studio Arts program. And that's also a CTE course. So when we look at that as being a CTE course, our next challenge is how do we build a continuum and a pathway up to that? So if you look at our middle school programs on there, it shows that we have intro to graphic arts. So a lot of the programs we're trying to establish at the middle school level, to Mr. Fleckenstein's point, is to really feed into the multiple things we have at the high school level. And they don't always have to be CTE, but we have the opportunity to connect CTE with a lot of these other programs. So, thank you for your time. But if the students' art, and it's called Bound, and it's gonna be at the Art Center until the 12th. Her name was Jayla Combs, I think. But beautiful art piece. I really want you to look at it and look at the message that the student sends, because it's a very powerful message. Oh, I'm here for questions.
No, just more of a comment. It reminds me of where we started of what you're doing here, and what I love when you do connect with institutions of higher education and industry are similar to look-fors, and developing the look-fors. And it's the same thing is questioning, what does that look like? So what are the look-fors that we can, in the field of education, know? What evidence can we look for to know that we're doing our job of preparing the students? So it's just
I'll just give you a personal story. When I was at one of the graduations and listening to some of the students, and many of them were like, okay, I'll go into my father's business and I'm just gonna stay home. So that impacted me, because did we prepare them through our programs for the next step? So when I was in another district, I used to sit on the stage and look at the face of the students. And then you could look in their face and you wanted to see, do they have hope for the next level? And it's very telling when you can look in their face and you see students celebrating, but then you just see students sitting there and it's almost like, okay, what am I gonna do now? So that's a big thing. So that's why the team and all the team I work with, they have the same passion. Everyone over there on that row have the same passion about making sure our students are successful and they leave our system. And as Dr. Fleckenstein said, that they are the top when they go out to compete. Good. Thank you. Any more questions? All right.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. So a few closing thoughts. I think what I'm hearing is kind of how do we know, right? So tonight we've heard a lot about some very powerful initiatives. I think it's clear you can see why they raise to the strategic level, meaning it takes a lot of commitment, it's aspirational, it requires a whole team approach, and it takes some time and a lot of engagement. And those are the things we want to strive for so we can grow our organization. But I'm also hearing questions like, where are we kind of now? And I'll refer right back up here to our priorities do now comes. And this is where we tell the story of performance and proficiency, as well as growth to align standards. We do have the session coming up at the February 7th to hear an update on that, in addition to updates on our within learners. That's kind of March. So you can kind of see how these things integrate together. At the end of February, we'll have another study session, and we'll have 3 initiatives again. 2 of those initiatives are focused on our human capital efforts. How are we engaging our staff? How are we supporting their wellness, their engagement? And how are we looking at our recruitment and retention work? So there's 2 initiatives for human capital. The third is on our instructional technology efforts with investments from our community to make sure that each classroom across our district is equipped for engaging and powerful learning, which you've seen a lot of evidence of recently in IRs. So we look forward to engaging with everyone. Just final notes of thank you. I want to make sure I acknowledge Dr. Bowden, who is the initiative sponsor for the 3 initiatives that you've heard tonight. Every initiative has a sponsor, and so I just want to thank her for her leadership. With that, of course, our presenters who are still prepared, and staff who are also engaged, and to you for your very thoughtful and provoking questions that will deepen our work as we move forward. All right, that concludes tonight's update, unless you have any further discussion or questions.
Directors, do you have any follow-on questions or comments or wonderings?
I thought it was very helpful, so thank you all.
It was very, very helpful. I thought it was very informative. I really enjoyed it. I can truly say I did. I can say. There are some areas, and I think we commented about those areas that we'd like further information on as we progress throughout the year, and we're looking forward to those. I can, I think each one of us had some comments on that one.
I'll review this.
Appreciate that. Anything else?
It was great, it was really helpful and informative, so thank you all.
With that being said, if there's no other items to be brought before this board meeting, we are now adjourned.
So, let's thank you.